Testing, testing.
We want to create a community eventually, down the road, of kind of like a blue sky community, blue sky whatever, right? Of all the universities that are interested in this stuff, and create this revolution, if you take that, right? And you can do it right here in Connecticut. That's, you get Senator Murphy is like, wow, he's on steroids. Have you seen what he's been saying lately? No, I haven't. Okay. He's really aggressive. But we got to get truth back. And without being partisan, we have to get truth back in America. True. Oh, true. Okay. So as far as me, yeah, we can talk. I think that I wouldn't look at money. Just the point is that these are the problems of society. We believe the youth of America, or the students, whatever you want to classify, needs to come together for something. Or society. I don't know how you want to put it. I don't want to put words in. Yeah. You understand what we're doing? Yes. It's just summarizing. Okay. If we went and did this, society, no, that's the whole thing. We believe that each of the answers will make American society better. Okay. You want to put us as a this is what we're. Okay. I'll correct you. All right. Can you actually send me the final? Okay. The one thing we didn't talk about is, because we don't need to ask for money, right? We don't know, but you want to have agreement just quickly, and then you want to allow questions. Wait, so I got from here. Okay. Is the one I wrote to you. It says we're asking for wait. Go ahead. Put the begin one on. And I need a copy of all these sent me, right? So I'll get them off the web. Here you go. No, it doesn't matter. It's not right. This is like a dry run, right? This is like, okay, well, how should it work? We'll try it. Black tape on the wall. I love it. You see the black tape? It's fantastic. Gentlemen? You're going to have to start this, right? Yeah, of course. Of course, we're not going to. We're going to wait until we get. All right. There we are. Tell me that, don't you love the ingenuity of our computer science students? You know, what is that? They had a problem. They fixed it with black tape and an iPhone. Don't you love that? It's like this is like the perfect example on how to get things done. Isn't it great? So send it. So vote. You should have the link. Send me the link. The link is in there. The link is sent out. Yes, I'll reach out and we'll try to build that information. Excellent. Oh, yeah, he gave us all the letters. So you guys are both gonna be here tomorrow, right? We can vote. Just because I like you doesn't mean you won't go. No. I feel for it. Yeah, okay. So you're okay with all that, right? We'll go tomorrow. So Abraham, are you presenting? Why, these guys blowing you up? They left you in class all by yourself. Yeah, all right. You ready? Excited? Come on. Why is this not comfortable for you? The talking? What? So good. You got somebody online, I see somebody logged in, who's that? That's somebody from us? Where's your lobby? You have a lobby or anything? Who's on? Oh, Abraham. That's you. Okay. There you go. No, come over here. Let's see. All right. Because they like sitting in the back. Yeah. Oh, yeah, actually, let's move up the camera so it makes it seem like a little deal. Otherwise, we're gonna look like an empty room. That table. Come on, move up. Yeah, move in. Oh, admit. No, you are.
Hello, Senator. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. But we can't see
Okay,
you,
great.
if that's fine.
Yeah, sorry. Stuck
All good. All good, all good. All right, give us a couple minutes and then we'll get started. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Senator, are you able to see the slides?
Yes,
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll get started just in a moment. All right, so for decades, technology has transformed American society, driving economic growth, productivity, healthcare, education, and communication. Tech giants such as Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon have all amassed a combined $17 trillion in wealth, shaping global innovation. However, this rise of social media has introduced serious challenges, and addictive algorithms, as well as other topics, have fueled compulsive behaviors and etc. Other categories such as hate speeches spreads unchecked, and misinformation erodes public trust. Data privacy concerns are at an all-time high, with majority of Americans worried about their online security. Meanwhile, youth mental health is in crisis, with suicide now being a leading cause of death among minors. Social media fraud and scams have cost Americans billions. While Europe has taken bold regulatory action, the US lags behind, partly due to the vast wealth and influence of the tech industry. To address these issues, we are seeking funding to establish a Center of Social Media Reform at UConn Stanford that will lead research, education, and policy recommendations to create a safer digital environment. Our solutions focus on 5 key areas: law, education, communication, resources, and technology. With law, reviewing state and global regulations to strengthen protections; with education, promoting digital literacy and online safety; communication, using social platforms and campaigns to inform the public; resources, providing tools and support for safer digital engagement; and technology, which leverages tech-driven solutions like fact-checking and privacy controls. Now, let's dive into the presentations covering these topics and pressing issues. First, I'll be talking about addictive algorithms. Perfect. So today we'll be discussing the pressing issue in our digital world, addictive algorithms. Social media platforms have revolutionized the way we interact, but they also come with an unintended consequence. We'll explore how these algorithms work, their impact on mental health, ethical concerns, legal actions, and potential solutions. Social media platforms use sophisticated algorithms designed to maximize user engagement. For example, we often see social media platforms push the same content onto their users until it's often a trend. Nowadays, we often rely on these sources for slang, and we try to incorporate that into our daily routine. These algorithms exploit psychological triggers, keeping users hooked and often leading to compulsive behavior. As concerns about mental health rise, productivity loss, and ethical dilemmas grow, governments and researchers are actively debating on how to regulate these systems. To understand why social media is so addictive, let's break down how these algorithms actually function. We've broken these down into 4 steps. Step 1 being social media tracks all sorts of user behavior. Step 2 being it prioritizes content that you like or you share among your peers and you interact with. Step 3 being it creates a dopamine driven infinite scrolling system and it uses autoplay to personalize your recommendations. Step 4 being it ultimately maximizes engagement as longer time of interaction increases the revenue of these companies. And this is often called attention economy. In short, these platforms aren't just showing you content, they're optimizing it to make you stay as long as possible. Now, this level of engagement may seem harmless, but it actually has a significant effect on their mental health, on the teens' mental health. It has effects such as dopamine-driven interactions, excessive social media use, social validation through likes and shares, and younger users also are particularly vulnerable as they're more likely to be engulfed with these sort of addictive algorithms. And we also know that screens aren't going away anytime soon, and neither are the concerns about their long-term impact. Now, some of the concerns are that user vulnerability, which we can break down into saying 54% of teenagers find it hard to quit social media, and over 33 million Americans struggle with addiction. Exploitation. In 2023, TikTok was fined for misusing children's data and failing to enforce age restrictions. With billions of users worldwide, these platforms hold an immense amount of power, often prioritizing profits over the user's well-being. Given these concerns, lawmakers have also started taking action. As you probably are aware, there's COSA, which is the Kids Online Safety Act, and the Attorney General also proposed that these social media algorithms require parental consent for people to use them. And there's also wide-scale lawsuits against Meta that you're probably aware of, and so on. So, what can be done to fix this issue? Transparency is key. Tech companies should be required to disclose how their algorithms work. Restricting addictive features such as limiting autoplay, infinite scroll, and the disruptive notifications could also reduce compulsive use. Promoting digital literacy, educating users, especially young people, on how these platforms influence their behavior. Balancing user freedom with corporate responsibility, such as finding a middle ground between regulation and allowing innovation to thrive. We need to ask ourselves, are we truly in control over online behavior or are the algorithms deciding for us? In summary, addictive algorithms are shaping the way we think, behave, and act. While these systems are highly effective at keeping us engaged, they come with unintended consequences, such as mental health challenges and ethical concerns, and a growing need for regulation. Thank you, and let's move on to the next topic. Yes, Sandra, do you have any questions at the moment after this presentation? Yep, let's move on to the next slide. Yeah.
Testing. Okay. So, hello everyone. I'm going to briefly talk about data privacy, why it's important, some key issues within it, and what we can do to address the problem. Oh, is it working? All right, so I'm first going to mention perhaps the most influential and controversial data privacy happening that has ever happened, I guess, which is Facebook Cambridge Analytica. So what happened is that Cambridge Analytica created an app under Facebook's academic license, and what was supposed to happen is that they were supposed to research user psychology, and so users were supposed to fill out a survey, and then Cambridge Analytica would create some psychological profile on them. But what ended up happening was that over 87 million users' data was actually downloaded by the app. So stuff like personal messages, history feeds, timelines, all of that was actually downloaded by the app and used without Facebook's knowledge, without the user's knowledge, and this was used for targeted political advertising during the 2016 election. So, why is targeting advertising important? Well, political advertising can be focused on specific issues, right? Let's say I know that you're really passionate about stopping illegal immigration, then I can push candidates by saying, hey, this candidate doesn't do anything about illegal immigration. Doesn't that make you angry? And so you can really appeal to the emotional aspect. You can manipulate people based on very specific issues. And let's also say maybe you have some sort of financial happening, you're in financial distress, you click on an article about how to get financial help, then I, as an advertiser, can know that, oh, this person needs a lot of money very quickly. So maybe let's push an ad about gambling or maybe cryptocurrency or anything where, get rich quick kind of thing. And so that's one issue. The other issue, which you can constantly hear on the news, is about data breaches. So now everything is online, everything is digital. In order to access services, you need to give up a lot of data. You need to have companies store your data, and that can be really problematic when those companies lose the data, when hackers get a hold of information like passwords or social security numbers. And so we definitely need to hold companies accountable for this. All right, so now I'm going to touch upon cookies, which are the most common way that advertisers track you on and in the digital world in general. So as you can see, this is a very common cookie pop-up. You'll see this on any website. And as you can see, the accept and continue button is very prominent. It almost forces you to click on it, right? If you want to manage cookies, you need to click on the less prominent link. You need to go through a couple more steps. And so they make it difficult for a user to actually prevent themselves from being tracked. And this is a type of dark pattern, which is a user interface trick that companies use to manipulate users into giving away additional data. And privacy policies are another example of these dark patterns. So last year, X and Instagram updated their terms of service, adding that all user content is subject for use in training of machine learning and artificial intelligence models. And for X, I want to emphasize that there was no opt-out mechanism for this. So it was just blanket policy that they had. And so on most social media platforms, data sharing is some sort of setting, so you can turn it on or off. However, it's usually on by default, and you really have to know what you're looking for and dive deep into the settings in order to figure out what those settings are. And so even if opting out is available, it is typically all or nothing, and users don't really know what exactly companies have access to unless they really go through a lot of legal text, which most people don't understand. Next one. So what can we do about this? So UConn Stanford can partner with governments and other organizations to do the following things. So one is to communicate and educate. So partnering with traditional media outlets as well as social media companies, digital outlets as well, to broadcast videos, articles, and resources, and institute this information and tell people, hey, these are the data that's being tracked. They don't have to be experts, but we just give them a broad overview of the types of things that could happen, the types of things that companies can do with the data. And we also want to investigate widely used platforms to identify dark patterns. How are companies, making it easy or difficult for users to know what data they have access to? We want to strengthen laws such as the Connecticut Data and Privacy Act to create new standards for the ease of opt-out. So how can consumers opt out of data sharing and so on, as well as researching new safeguards and cybersecurity frontiers to protect user data against private breaches. All right, so that's it for data privacy. Any?
Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Shanil, and we'll present. My name is Shanil, and we'll be talking about misinformation over social media. So, let's look at some examples of misinformation and how it spreads over the social media. Um, so, social media incentivizes misinformation, um, and on social media, it travels very quick. And for example, if you look at X, misinformation travels 6 times faster on it, and on Facebook, 75% of the links are shared without being clicked. So once someone sees an article, they would share it with only just reading the headline, not the entire article, which which could spread misinformation. And we saw during the COVID-19 anti-vax movement, there were people speculating that the vaccines would have microchips and cause disorders, which resulted in 6,000 hospitalizations and over at least 800 deaths. As you can see on the picture, you see that Facebook is the largest platform where misinformation is spreading. Now let's look at some solutions that we could implement in what sector. So for technology, it's important that we reduce the algorithmic amplification. So we would work on algorithms that we basically work on addictive algorithms that was presented earlier and implement the solutions. Um, so for automated content moderation, this would detect misleading content in real time and and strike accounts that have posted this. So if they decide to post any other misleading content, they would be striked or even like banned for forever. They could also we could also incorporate blockchain into this solution where we would track the content from its origin, and as it's because it is immutable, we could have a transparent source, and we could see where the content is where it is manipulated and who has been posting it. Another sector that we looked at for a solution is education, and it's important that people are educated in this at this in this area because misinformation uh, could be even like life threatening as well. And a solution that we thought of was media literacy in curriculum from K to 12, where we would teach, there'd be a class that would teach students about, um, they would teach students about spotting biases, verifying sources, and such. And another thing for older generation would be holding holding workshops where in libraries and social centers where they could learn how to spot like scams using like the scams that come on the messaging app, for example. And another thing that kind of goes in hand with the technology, we would create an interactive website for to raise awareness, where we could prompt the user through practical scenarios to verify that it's a whether content is has misleading content or if it's real. So basically, like a two truths and a lie uh, thing. And that's it. Do you have any questions? Yeah, we did look at it too. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, can you repeat the question? Was it watermarks on content, like digital content? Mm-hmm. Right. There are AIs such as Gork and Meta AI that do this. They have like a watermark in the corner of the image that they generated. So I think so.
I just want to provide a little background of what this is. This is a senior computer ethics course. So it's a one credit course that I've been doing for the last 3 years. And what we want to try to do is try to start something practical here in Stanford. And so this is kind of like the seeding of it. So so we haven't really spent the amount of time that we'd like to do to research. It's kind of like boiling the ocean of all these topics. So what we were trying to do is come up with categories and divide it. And then we have 36 students in the room right now, and everybody would get into each topic. So this is what they came up with since the beginning of the term in January. So we want this to be an ongoing, not end at the end of this term. We want to try to build this here. We're also doing a lot of things within the community, with the Boys and Girls Club, with the local high schools, with volunteers. So we're trying to build Connecticut, these communities to build out websites, build out references, work with other universities, build out a community online, and raise awareness of these ideas. So that's kind of like a start, and we're hoping that you can help us with this. So I think yeah, I think what we're trying to do, and again, we've been doing this for a couple of years, is kind of provide, the deep computer science knowledge that you as lawmakers might not have, and that we have these students that grew up with social media that can understand it and really do the thinking and the digging that you might need to get to your goals. And that's kind of what this center that we want to propose is going to be. So I'm going to let the next group come up. Who's after misinformation? Oh, all right. Why don't you introduce yourself and go through?
All right, hello. So my name is Joseph Vincento. I'm going to be talking about online child protection and safety. All right, so I'm sure everyone here already knows that there's a bit of an ongoing mental health crisis going on. Since 2012, we've seen sharp increases in mental health incidents. And the growing consensus has been that this is linked to the rise in technology use. And studies have already shown that people who heavily rely on things like social media are more likely to show signs of unhappiness, depression, have increased risk factors for suicide. And this is particularly true among young girls who has been shown that social media use has been more strongly associated with depression than extreme things like heroin use. So obviously this is a problem and that needs a solution. And to that end, several states across the US have already tried to implement solutions to that issue. Two recent notable examples being first one, Utah, that requires age verification as well as parental consent for anyone under the age of 18 to access social media. And the second one that I want to bring up being Florida, which requires similar parental consent, but in their case, for anyone under the age of 14. They also required termination of any existing accounts for people under 14, kind of hitting the hard reset button on all their accounts. And we see across the world similar steps being taken. Two examples from the EU being Belgium and France that both require users to have parental consent for children under the age of 13 for Belgium and 15 for France. Also, more recently, and a bit more of an extreme example, being Australia, which passed legislation, I believe, last October, that actually just outrightly banned children under 16 from accessing social media. So here in Connecticut, some legislation has already been passed that sort of takes the first steps for protecting children's online safety in 2023. And that legislation had established requirements for what tech companies could and could not do with their personal data, as well as social media accounts. And also created the Internet Crimes Task Force. This is a good first step, but we do think that it would require some enhancement, namely because it lacks any sort of robust age verification. There's no required parental control on minors' accounts. And there's not really a technological framework to go along with those regulations. So to that end, we think it is very much within reason to require tech companies that host these platforms to provide some sort of child-specific version of their platforms. That would include things like enhanced safety features. It would not provide any algorithmic content recommendations. It would give parents easy ways to set time limits for their children or control what they can and can't, what kind of content they can and can't see. We also think that a device level solution would be appropriate here. So something like an iPhone or an Android for kids that would have the protections I just mentioned, but they would be built in at an operating system level. And this would also be able to provide parents with enhanced control dashboards that give them real-time monitoring and notifications for what their children are doing online. And good news is that most of the technology that you would need to implement this is already out there. So age verification, that can be handled a number of ways, from multi-factor verification to parental authorization via some kind of secured channel. And you can even get a bit more advanced with it in deploying a privacy-preserving AI age estimation model, just to make sure that kids aren't trying to get around the rules by pretending to be someone they're not. Same deal with parental controls. Technology like remote device management and content approval systems already exist. Being able to provide usage statistics and reports that are easy to obtain and easy to understand is something that would be very important, as well as providing emergency lockdown capabilities. Like I already said, all this technology already exists in one form or another, so there's really no reason why, a multi-billion-dollar tech company couldn't implement it in their product. So in summary, Connecticut's already made good first steps, but we think that we can go further with tech-based solutions, from requiring companies to provide age-specific versions of their platforms to providing enhanced parental control features, and of course establishing some sort of oversight commission to ensure technological compliance And yeah, just overall, we want to make sure that it is a top priority that Connecticut's children's online safety is one of their top priorities. So, yeah, thank you.
Senator, I just want to comment on what you said earlier. So what we're going to do in finishing up this term is kind of build a website on this, and then that website would have links to some of the things that you talked about, and kind of would bring that education and awareness of what's going on, and then linking into other universities and studies. So kind of want to get a grassroots movement to address all these issues, and wondering if that's something that you would support and help us move forward. Okay, great. Next up, who's up next? Abraham?
Hello. All right. Okay. My name is Abraham, and our group specifically looked at scams. And although we looked at healthcare scams and like crypto scams, we decided to take a look at phishing scams specifically for the presentation. So, what are phishing scams? It's a cyber threat in which a scammer impersonates a trustworthy source. It tricks individuals into revealing sensitive information, whether that's passwords, bank account information, or even their social security numbers. So, this specific scam, go to the Okay, so this specific scam is about tolls. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center reported receiving over 2,000 complaints about this specific scam in March 2024. And literally yesterday, somebody in our group got this exact text about not paying their tolls. And
Got it 2 weeks ago.
yeah, exactly. So in a controlled study conducted by Cornell University, out of 265 participants, more than 16% fell for simulated phishing attacks like this one, and over 12% succumbed to repeated attempts. So here's just a little bit of statistics. 4 out of every 100,000 residents were victims of phishing scams in 2022, and every 100,000 people, over $26,000 were lost in 2022. So here are just some phishing laws in Connecticut specifically. So computer crime is defined as unauthorized access to computer systems, theft of computer services, interruption of computer services, misuse of computer system information, and destruction of a computer equipment as criminal offenses. And then internet crime specifically just encompasses unauthorized use of a computer or computer network. So here are like the types of phishing scams specifically. So spear phishing, it uses personal details from social media. So let's say you post of, oh, you just lost like your health insurance or something, and then a scam health insurance company reaches out to you with very low policies. Whaling targets high-profile employees via highly personalized, convincing messages. So this is like if you were at work and like somebody impersonating your boss wants sensitive information very quickly, chances are it's not your boss. Phishing is phone calls or voice messages that pretend to be a reputable source. That could be you're getting a fake phone call from a loved one and somebody's using AI just to try to get some money out of you. And email phishing are mass emails sent by attackers posing as legitimate organizations. That's very similar to whaling, but yeah. So what we need to do moving forward is to use education as a tool. About 36% of Connecticut residents, or about 1.3 million people, lack the skills to meet the digital literacy benchmark. What we really need to teach is that people should be taught that these scams are solely a business because all they want is your money. And we need to look out for specific red flags that are essentially in every single scam, which is a suspicious email address or urgent or threatening language because they want it fast, because chances are you're not going to make a good decisions when you're just on your feet like that. And then unexpected attachments or links. So one way is to just spread the word through social media. We're all on social media, so we need to use platforms. One specific thing we could do is have verified state government accounts that post whenever a new scam emerges. That way, every single person, whether it's a sponsored social media account or whatever, people will see that these scams are hitting the state instead of just guessing. Um, yeah. So here's another solution we have. AI-powered database solution. So let's say you receive a text or an email that you are just suspicious of. You can submit these to a database, which is then analyzed by a trained AI model using those like 3 specific things that are usually in most scams, and it'll determine whether or not somebody has already put it into the database or if it's a scam, like a new one. So if it's trained to detect the phishing red flags, then uh, this will allow people to have constant access to a continuously updated source of potential threats and can track activity nearby, because some scams can be specific per state. So here's just like some user flow of the database itself, just to get like a general idea. First, you receive a message you're suspicious of, then you enter in the database into the website's database. So let's say if it's the toll scam, chances are it's already in the database. So it'll just give you a rundown of so many people have submitted this already. It's a scam, so you just avoid it. But if it's a new scam, I don't know what it, but if it's a new scam, then it'll be trained by the AI model to analyze it. It'll give a percent likelihood of whether or not it can be a scam, whether now or even in the future, just by its language, where it comes from, its domain, anything. And then the model creates a generic example using messages and uploads them to the website along with the scam likelihood percentage. So going back to like, if you were to submit the toll scam, it would give you that how many people have already did this and the percent likelihood, which is 100%. But like, so, and then here are just some useful resources. Um, information from the FTC on how to recognize a phishing scam and what to do about it, and then where you can report fraud specifically to the FTC, and then where you can submit like suspicious email addresses you get to the FTC. Do you have any questions?
No, no, that's great. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Karima, and for our last topic today, I'm going to be talking about hate speech, violence, and the ethical and legislative challenges we face. So for today, we're going to be talking about 3 main topics. We're going to be talking about what is the role of technology in hate speech, what are Connecticut's legislative efforts, and what is our call to action. Next slide. So just an introduction of why hate speech and violence is important to learn about. They're on the rise with social media playing a critical role. Critical being so that social media is growing by the years, and Connecticut actually has hate crime laws, but challenges persist and enforcement and moderation. Next slide. So to start us off, we just have a little bit of Connecticut statistics so that we understand what are the driving bias motivations. So we have 44% race and ethnicity, 29% religion, and 24% sexual orientation. So those are the 3 topics that are being targeted the most when it comes to those primary bias motivations. Next slide. So, what is the role of technology in hate speech? Well, social media platforms use algorithms designed for engagement, often amplifying diverse and harmful content. Now, the big question that we want to know today is, should tech firms be held accountable for the hate speech on their platforms? Well, if we look at the European Union versus the US approach, the European Union actually enforces stricter regulations while US platforms lean towards free speech. Now, what about AI? AI is great and very useful and can actually detect hate speech, but it struggles with sarcasm, bias, and sometimes context. Over relying on AI can risk censorship and suppression of legitimate speech. So we can actually take out things that are actually important by over relying on AI. Next slide. Now, what are Connecticut's legislative efforts? Well, just to look at some of the state hate crime laws, there are penalties for crimes motivated by race, religion, gender identity, and sexual orientation. There are also civil penalties of up to $2,500 per offense. There's also proposed reforms that aim to strengthen prosecutorial effectiveness. Now, if we look a little bit farther back, early anti-hate legislation imposed fines for advertisements ridiculing people based on race or religion. The modern challenges for that are that the law lacks focus on online hate, as well as speech and digital harassment. Next slide. Now, what is our call to action? So we have some solution and policy recommendations. One is improving AI-based moderation, combining AI and human oversight, opposed to just relying on one, with more context-aware detection models for evolving hate speech will help distinguish or extinguish this growth that we're seeing. Also, platform accountability, holding those tech companies responsible for the harmful algorithmic amplification and encouraging transparency and context moderation policies. So, for example, if Facebook is having a lot of hate speech, then we're holding those people accountable. Now, there's also legal and educational reform, so updating CT laws to address digital hate speech and cyber harassment to make sure that we're staying up to date with the modern century. Next slide. These are just my resources, and as a quick conclusion, I just want to further emphasize that hate speech and misinformation are deeply embedded in social media, and the solutions require working together and making sure that we are fighting this problem together on all realms. Now, to recap all the slides, go to the next slide. Now, while these problems are significant, solutions exist through education, policy reform, responsible technology design, and informed user choices. It's up to us, professionals, students, and future innovators to push for a more ethical and balanced digital space. Thank you. But now, as for the senator, we'd actually like to pose a question back onto you and ask, what do you recommend for us moving forward? In general. Thank you.
So Senator, me and Professor Bradford here have been building this campus for how long you been, Phil?
Oh, since 2016.
And it's really been explosive. I think we've
Yes.
had 400% increase since we started.
Yeah, so we've also got some super talented students.
Yes. So we want to be able to leverage the talent that, and it's growing, right? Our
Yep, yep.
campus.
Whole campus is definitely growing. Computer science here seems still to be on the upward trend, even though it's statewide, it's going down a little bit.
Right, but we have record number of enrollment.
Yep.
You've seen the record number of enrollment at UConn itself.
Yep.
But probably
percentage-wise, here we're much bigger.
Stanford is probably the highest growth in the
whole system.
UConn system. So this is what we want to really see if we can partner with legislatures and other organizations to build up this campus, get these really talented. This is a great group of talent. This is the best talent I've ever seen since I've been here.
Very solid.
I want to thank all you guys for doing an excellent job. So really, we're trying to make awareness of what we have here and how you as a legislator and people can take advantage of this wonderful community that we have.
Yes.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so
Yes. Great. Yeah, excellent point.
Yeah, we're kind of doing that a little bit right now. We've been doing that for years with some of the financial institutions. Obviously, Synchrony's here, Webster Bank, State Street, different companies that we've been involved in employing our students.
Yes. Also,
We haven't
a
gotten
number
enough with the smaller companies.
Well, we've got a number of startups we place students in. In fact, we've placed 5 students in startups that are regionally here, which is really good. Full-time students, actually, and we've placed probably close to 10 or more students in startups as interns since 2016. Yeah.
And I think, Phil, you've already been involved in the grant, right?
Yeah, well, so we're slightly involved, and we actually sent a pitch in from the community for the innovation cluster, which it looks like it was kind of declined, but we have reached out to the mayor's office as well for the innovation cluster. But we're definitely, reaching out to everybody we can, including you.
Yes.
Rick, let me know how I can help.
Very nice.
So we'll make sure that this.
To be appreciated.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make sure that when we launch the website, that any links, we'll have the students reach out to you directly. Any links in those areas we provide to what you want to get across to the community.
Thank
All
you.
right,
I really
and
appreciate
thank
it.
you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Yay.
All right. Okay, thanks. All right. Good job.